Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Q&A. We're so excited that you joined us for our screening of See You Then. I am here with the film team, so ready to get a couple of questions answered. I'm going to kick it over to the director, Mari Walker. Thanks for being here with us.
Hi, thank you for having us. And with us, we have Lynn, Chen, and Pooya Mohseni, our two co-leads of the film. Absolute geniuses.
I could not agree more. It's so exciting to have all three of you here to speak a little bit to how this process happened. So I'll start by asking a little bit just about the impetus. I'd love to hear, Maury, how this kind of came up for you, and then, how your two leads got attached to the project.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to direct a film since I was a teenager. And I wrote all these very expensive, elaborate scripts that, I probably can't even get done in the next 10 years, much less, last year. And, as I was working on a couple of scripts, I realized I really needed to like bring it down and work on sort of a chamber piece. And one of the things that I really felt like I was lacking as a screenwriter was like work in dialogue. And I thought it'd be really great to like spend a lot of time working with two actors and really like learning the craft of hopefully directing them as well as I could, hopefully. And at the time, my co-writer and our producer, Kristen Uno, was living with me, and I sort of forced her into writing the script with me. And at the time, I think she and I were both going through a lot of reflection about our life and where it led us, where we were now, what we wanted out of life, what we wanted out of our careers. Did we still want children? And all these sort of ideas sort of started floating and merging into the script that we started working on. And then, it's the beautiful thing of when you write it and then you keep on writing, you write it, and then all of a sudden like a line will come out of nowhere that you didn't even know existed, but it just came purely from the character, right? And then, and then you fall in love with your characters and feel really bad when you ruin their lives. But, as those things go. Do you two want to talk about the casting process?
I'll go. Well, 2 years ago, I get this email that someone wants me to be in their movie, which of course, at first I thought it was a joke, a bad joke. Somebody was playing on me. So I throw it to my agents, and my agents, I'm like, no, this is not a joke. And Mari had a personal letter attached to it that she had seen me in a short film that I had done many years ago. That was at the same festival that I believe Swim was at. And she had liked what I had brought to it as, if I remember correctly, something about quiet strength and nuance or something like that, that she liked that I brought to the screen. And I read her script. I actually read it twice. There were moments I couldn't breathe. I just felt very connected to it. And I will say very shortly why, because as a trans person, I see trans characters written, but they're usually from somebody else's point of view. They are there for somebody else's story, but for them to be the story in a nuanced, full human way, that was fabulous, for lack of a better term. And I said I would love to be involved with this. And as there is with indie work, there were some hurdles along the way, but I knew that it was happening when I went to LA to do chemistry reads, and that's when I met the lovely, my lovely co-star Lynn. And ever since then, it's been a project that's filled me with gratitude and pride and joy. I mean, I can talk about it for hours, but I will leave it that it's just one of those rare moments in your artistic life that things like this happen.
That's lovely.
I discovered this project the way I discover most projects, which is an audition that crosses my computer. But I knew right away, when I first read the script and saw that it was a two-hander, and that was a challenge that was presented. And right away, I was like, I like the idea of really challenging myself, of just me and one other actor talking over the series of one night. One of my favorite movies, one of the movies that made me want to even be an actor was Richard Linklater's series Before Sunrise. And so that was number one. And then when I saw where the audition was, I thought to myself, Vanishing Angle, that's our production company. I thought, why does that sound so familiar? Why does this address feel so familiar? And when I showed up at the audition, I realized, oh my God, Vanishing Angle, Matt Miller, one of our producers, did me the enormous favor for my own directorial debut just a few months before that and allowed us to film at Vanishing Angle.
Oh,
It was
nice.
we spent a day there filming. And so when I walked in, I immediately felt at ease because, you know, usually, especially when you really want a part, it's this actor brain of wanting to prove yourself. It feels like a test. You're like ready to run. But instead, you know, I saw Mari as a collaborator and a colleague. You know, she's also a first-time Asian filmmaker. And that to me, you know, I saw a lot of myself in her. And so I just wanted to, you know, help make her her dream a reality. And if I could do that, then I could do that. But if I couldn't, I couldn't. And as I went through the audition process, I did something that I never do, which is that I wrote her a letter,
Mm.
just telling her how much it meant to me, because I just felt like she should know how much it meant to me. Like I felt like she should know that it wasn't just like another audition to me, even though it started off that way. The project meant a lot more to me than just that. So that's my very long answer to how I ended up being a part of this. But I always knew, I knew even in that, you know, short email that I got, this was special, and I was right.
No, do not edit yourselves. These are really, it's so insightful to hear a little bit more about, you know, the impetus for your involvement. And it's so I think it actually reads really clearly on screen that you each had such passion for the project, you know, coming at it from these different angles. And I think, yeah, there's this representational element that I do want to talk about in a moment, but also this is just a kick-ass film, excuse me for saying so. It stands on its own 2 feet and it's so enjoyable to watch. So I'd like to get, of course, you all mentioned the script, and it is such a massive undertaking that each of you and how you related to it undertook. So Mari, can you tell us about what it was like to co-write such a dialogue heavy script? And then to the two of you, what was that like to do so much of this really intense, direct conversational work? And what surprised you about kind of putting it up?
Yeah, I mean, I love co-writing. I think it's a really, writing can be such a solitary process, and it could be so daunting and kind of demoralizing, but it really helps a lot of times to have somebody that you could bounce ideas off of and make sure that like it's sort of the first line of defense in terms of making sure that like the script actually reads and actually makes sense. And Kristen's so great at dialogue. And um so, you know, I had originally started out with my own draft, and then I sort of coerced her into making it with me. And then over the, you know, over the many months, then she started falling in love with the characters too. And one of the things that she was really adamant about was reading the script out loud,
Mm.
because especially since it's so dialogue driven, she just felt like it would really help. You know, and I've done countless interviews now. I hate the sound of my own voice. I mean, I'm sure everybody does. I'm sure everybody does, but I have like a thing about it. So I'm like, ugh. And so I struggled with that. And whenever we'd read it, you know, I would inevitably play Chris, and then she'd play Naomi. And we, you know, we go back and forth and do it. And I always like would sort of half-heartedly like put it in, because I was like, I'm not a, you know,
Sure.
I'm not an actor. I don't know. You know, and so I'd get really nervous and all this stuff. And then I think it was towards the end of the final draft. I think it was like 3 days away from when we finished the script. And Kristen was like, let's go through a reading. I was like, okay, you know, and so we get into it and we get to the final scene. And I just really got into it. I just started like, and then I started like improvising lines and adding like character beats. And she was kind of looking at me like, what are you doing? And then I was just like, and I started yelling at her, poor Kristen, just yelling at her in the middle of the day in my apartment. And then, you know, we finished it and she was like, I think it's ready. You know, I think that's when it feels like if you're able to get into it, then I can't even imagine what it would be like to actually have like amazing performers perform this dialogue and create these characters that were just on the page. I mean, they were, you know, I mean, the translation from the page to what we have, it's such an evolution. I mean, it really like, you know, it's just that magical thing as a director or a screenwriter when you're hearing your words spoken. It's magic. So it was very, very special.
Yeah, really, it exists in the air. It really does.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
came alive. So yeah, you two, what was it like? So much dialogue. How did you memorize it? And then how did you perform it so well?
Well, I will say that, memorizing lines is not my strength.
Mm,
But when this project came to me, I had just done several. I had actually, the day before we started, I had just finished the lead in another movie.
mm,
So, and then before that, I had just done another one. So it was like, at that point, my muscle memory was a little bit better, but also I just also felt like, what choice do I have? I just gotta do this. And so, I mean, I even spent time on my vacation in Paris, just like memorizing lines instead of, seeing the city with my husband. And here's the thing though, when you really love something, it's not work, it's something you get to do. So for me, I was like, what a pleasure, what a pleasure. I get to go to the Louvre and eat like Parisian food tonight, but today I get to like immerse myself in this world. So like for me, it was a joy. It was hard, but not as hard as as memorizing like, doctor language, where you really don't care about what's happening. This was definitely something that was, difficult, but at the same time, just, a matter of doing the work.
mm.
For me, I should actually say I'm doing an audition, and part of that, they said, this character has a few long monologues, and we want to make sure that the actor can memorize. I should just say, you should watch See You Then.
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I think part of it is like what Lynn said. You just look at it like this is what you got to do. But I also remember my dad asking me many, many years ago when he was still alive. He's like, "How do you do it?" I don't know, because I've always thought that like there are people that are just so much better. They just look at the stuff. I think for me, it's understanding what it is that the characters want to do, and you just uh, keep going through the scene, and you kind of like it sticks.
Yeah.
It sticks, especially when it's something that also has an emotional root in you, and you understand what it is you want to accomplish, what it is that you want to do. Um, and like Lynn said, it didn't have like, well, actually, my character had some technical stuff that she had to say, which, that one paragraph may have been more difficult
Then
than
the
the whole script. But the rest of it, we had great support. I feel both in each other and Mari and Kristen and just everyone in the team. We had time to rehearse together, to kind of like mold the dialogue, it's like take this out, add that in. And because we were there, by the time we got to it, we felt that, even if you forget a line, that's got to be fine. You're going to do it again. And as soon as you feel you're in that environment, you're no longer afraid if you're going to remember or not, which amazingly enough, you remember even better, because you're like, oh yeah, it's that. And as it's coming out of your mouth, you're like, oh shit, I actually remember that one. But I can't say enough what it feels like when you are working with people who have your back,
Mm,
and you feel the love and you feel the support and you give it back. And when everybody's in it, it's just words. Everybody has a job, and our job is to memorize the words and be authentic and be in the moment and be emotional. It's like no biggie. But when it's something that you feel invested in, it's not difficult. It's just being,
yeah.
because
And
everybody gives you the tool to do it.
yeah, that you each became so rooted in the characters, and I think that'll be my last question to all of you is, like I said, it's such an important piece of representation. I feel like in this moment, as the first trans director of programming of Damn These Heels, I'm very proud to present this film amongst a lot of other trans voices that are in our program this year. But this one sticks out as being something, like you all said, as something that's really authentic and really in and of the community. And has a perspective that's, first and foremost has a story and is real and human and nuanced, and then of course has some really kick-ass representational elements as well. So can you, the lead, speak to a little bit what resonated with you representationally and in your characters? Of course, also you won the CAM award. This is also an amazing film for the Asian American community. Can you speak to how you related to your characters on that kind of personal level, and Mari, of course, what it means to you to put this film in front of people at this time?
Since I'm already here, I'll just take this.
Here you are. Awesome and everything.
There's no representation of Middle Eastern trans people.
Yeah.
There isn't, and that's just fact. And to have been that, like I have queer people from Iran. They think I'm this big Hollywood star. I'm not, but the fact that that gives them hope, that makes them feel seen, that makes them feel valued. As you can see, I don't even have to tell you how it makes me feel, because you can see it. I know that it didn't exist when I was growing up. And the fact that I get to be with these amazing people, and some queer Middle Eastern kids, some queer kid in general, but specifically a queer kid who does not see themselves in any shape or form in the media, and they can see this. Their parents can see this. They can feel that somewhere in the world, somebody cares enough to tell the story that speaks to them, to validate them, to affirm them, to artistically show them love. And to have been part of that, I don't know if 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I even came to this country, I would have even dreamed of this. And to be part of this, to have been one of the two leads of this amazing story that is told with authenticity and love and care. And I keep repeating that because that is true. And to have been part of that, as Lynn has said about projects that she has done before, I feel that this is going to be something I will look back, that we will all look back 10 years from now, and we will realize that this was significant because it was the first that represented people that don't get this kind of representation, and it represented them in this particular way where they were not a token, they were not a fetish, they were not somebody else's plot line, that it was their story. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I will look back and I will be very grateful that I got to be part of that step in representation and inclusivity.
Does anyone want to follow that up? Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, as Pooya had mentioned, there was a project I had done in 2005 called Saving Face. That was the first feature film to feature two lesbian Asian American characters in leading roles. And at the time, we were ahead of our time. A lot of people knew it was a big deal, but at the same time didn't want to make it into a big deal. And now in 2021, the movie still gets a lot of attention and has stood the test of time. And I hear from people on a regular basis still about how the movie changed their lives. And because of that gift that I was able to be a part of that, I'm very conscious of what projects I choose to be a part of that revolve around the LGBTQ community, because I consider myself an ally, and I don't want to be a part of something just because it has LGBTQ themes. I want the work to speak for itself. And for the opportunity for those things to line, it's so hard to make a movie in general. It's like a miracle. So to make a good movie, and to make a movie that represents people who have traditionally been marginalized, it's hard. And so when I see that, I hold on for dear life. And a big part, to be honest, of why I really wanted this was because of moments like right now of this Q&A. because I feel like had I known everything that I had known in 2005, like everything that I know now of how movies can impact people, I think I would have handled the press differently.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a big reason why it's so important to me, because I just think movies and art can change the world. And I know that to be true. And they can change lives and they can change the world. So I want to be part of things that can change the world. Who doesn't? Who doesn't want to do that? So when I'm given the opportunity to, I take it. And
Thank
I
you.
don't take it lightly.
Nor should you. Yeah, no, we're of the same philosophy. We totally agree. It's amazing. Mari, if you have an in you,
Oof, hard to follow up.
take us
Oh my
home.
God, you know? I would just say that I don't want to be the last Asian American trans director to have a film at South by
Mhm.
or any festival, or or hopefully with any luck have the opportunity to be able to get distribution. More voices need to get out there, and I always worry that a lot of times there's a pendulum swing, particularly when things happen politically, where there's like a more of a laxness that comes with like a comfort.
Mm.
I don't want the push to stop, because I think that we need to get more stories out there, as many as humanly possible. Because right now we just have to strike while it's hot, and make sure that these stories get out there and this representation gets out there. There's more representation in front of the camera and also behind the camera.
Mhm.
Um, and make sure that people are being seen. I mean, I think that's been one of the most rewarding things about this experience. Everything that we've done so far with the festivals has been virtual, but
Mm.
the emails that we've gotten, the text messages, the live chats on some of the festival platforms, it's been really, I've been very fortunate to know that it is affecting people. And I just hope that I can continue to do that, that the film can continue to do that, and that I can continue to hopefully push other filmmakers to have that opportunity to succeed, because there's just a wealth of story out there that needs to be told. I mean, just chef's kiss. It'll just be, when it takes off, it's going to be out of control. It's going to be great. And I cannot wait to see the films that are also playing at the festival, because I'm sure there's just like just a plethora of representation in this explosion of just different types of stories that are being told. That's amazing. So I'm just grateful to be a part of it, grateful to be on this ride.
Ah, we're so glad to have you. We were before, but after this conversation, I mean, even more so. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure our audiences appreciated getting to hear more from each of you about what this project means to you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us. Thank you everyone for watching.